Well, hello everyone and welcome to my first video. I am so glad to have you here. Thank you very much for giving me a chance. So in today's video, I want to sew something kind of cute, kind of cool. It's going to be a troll. So you can check it out. I'm going to draw it first to get a better idea of how I want the overall plushie to look before I actually create it. Let me just block it in real quick so you can see it. So it's fairly standard. He's kind of a thick boy. I didn't mean to draw him so chubby. He's got his usual arms kind of attached to his neck area, some feet, some ears, and some horns. Now I am just going to put some colors down to decide what material I'm going to use. Now I'm not going to use these colors. This is just to give me an idea of what I want to use in the way of the dark green color will be one type of material, the light green color will be a second type of material, yellow will be a third material, and I think I will do a fourth material for his horns. Now, I've drawn him with some very derpy eyes. I don't have any derpy eyes, so that's not going to be how it goes, but it's very cute. Now let's see how I turn him into a plushie. So first I need to make the template or the pattern, and I do that by cutting out some magazines kind of to the shape I want. It's a long and tedious process, so let's just kind of blow right over that and get to the point where I've actually made it and I've got my pattern made. I got the back, the face, the belly, legs, arms, horns and ears. And now it's time for one of the more fun things, is to select the material. It's what your plushie is going to look like in the end. So I kind of got two bundles. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I figured, hey, why not just do two trolls? So first video, I'm going to do two different trolls. So there we go. Now I've got my water-soluble marker and I'm just drawing on the back of the material and using that before I cut it out. And I'm trying to do what someone told me was the Mars bar method. I don't know if that's the real term, but it's where you try to use the least amount of material as possible to cut out so you have more for your next project, which is the reason why I am drawing and cutting these pieces out so close to each other or so close to the edges, because that's what I learned. Good old Mars bar method. So I'm just going to do this part very quickly because we all know what cutting out things looks like. So there we go. Here is a preview of both trolls, red and blue. So let me pop on the different pieces. We've got the back, the ears, the horns, the face, the bellies, and we've got some arms, and then finally I'll put on the legs. Now, if you want to see the blue troll, you'll have to wait till the end of the video because I'm going to work on the red troll first. Now let's get to the fun part. Oh my god, it's finally time to sew. So I put the two outside pieces together on the inside. You might, if you're unsure about sewing, you might think, what are you doing? So basically, you want to put the two outside pieces together on the inside so you can turn it. So you just get like a nicer seam. That's just, it'll be easy to show you. So let me just go around this corner of the ear. You've got to do it slowly. You've got to pick up the pressure foot and move it around every now and then. So here is what the ear looks like all turned. It's not perfectly shaped. I will have to go back and cut away the seam allowance in a lot of these because I find it just makes it sit better. And the troll, yep, creasing it over. It's going to have a little crease to make his ear a little bit more defined, a little bit more 3D. And yeah, I'm just going to do another one of those, but for now, I'm going to start on the arms. So again, I put both of the outsides facing inside. So what you're seeing right now is the dull side that I'm sewing around on. It's not the bad side, it's just the dull side. So again, taking my time because this fabric has stretched, I want to try to get it as neat as possible because the neater you do it, the nicer it's going to look when you turn it, and it'll have a better shape. And quickly a second one. So yeah, I'm quite happy with how the shape turned out. I think the rounded edges look pretty good. I use a pencil just to help me turn it inside out. It helps if you have smaller fingers for this kind of work. So for this part, I want to sew the troll's foot, which is the blue circle, to the leg, which is the red. Now this is a fairly tricky point of the project. So that top thinner part will go into the body, the wider part will go into the foot. Now it'll be easier to see what I'm talking about when I pin it up. So let's have a look at how the pinning goes. Alright, so it's all pinned up. You can see what I mean by it's a bit tricky. So I slowly need to sew in a circle while taking the pins out to make sure I get the troll's foot and leg into like a nice shape without getting any of the extra material of the leg bunched under the seams, because I don't want it to be doubled up at any point. That wouldn't be too good. So it's not a race. I am very careful going through here, making sure that there's a bit of seam allowance, because you don't know if the material under what you can see has slip and slide or slip and slid everywhere. So it looks okay. I'm pretty happy. I do a bit of a turnout so you can see. So again, the outsides were facing inside when I was sewing, so that when I do turn it, it has a nice hidden seam and it's looking pretty good. I noticed that I wasn't perfectly round in one section, so I do just a little bit of work to neaten it up. Most of the time I will do this kind of neatening work off camera, but as you can see, it just looks a little bit more like a nice round circle now. It's not something that you could really see the fault of on camera when I turned it out before, but it's just something that I noticed and I wanted it to look nice. So now I want to sew up the back of the leg. So where my left hand is, that's where the foot is, the blue circle, and I'm just sewing up the back section of the leg all the way up. Ooh, I had a bit of trouble doing my reverse seam on the end there. There we go. So when I turn it out now, I've got one whole leg and foot. Now I just got to do another one off camera. I think we'll save myself the trouble. And yeah, let's keep going. So now, hooray, we're up to putting the face onto the belly. He's got a fluffy belly, and because the material is a bit thicker with all the fluffiness, I'm using some bulldog clips or fold back clips, and I just take it nice and slow to get a straight line. And at the end here, because the red material does stretch, it does go over a little bit, but that's not too bad. I'm fine with that if there's a bit of excess. And now, up to the horns! So again, putting the outsides together on the inside and sewing it around, taking my time because it's fiddly and small and there is a corner, and you just have to, you know, put your pressure foot up and down to do the corners while the needle's down in the material. If you do know this, what I'm talking about, you'll know you just have to take it very slow. Now, because this is a cotton material that frays very easily, you can see the fraying on it. I always decide if it's just cotton on cotton like this, like the fraying stuff, just to do a second seam around. It also helps just neaten up the shape of my seams, and it will stop it from fraying, because sometimes when I turn these small cotton on cotton things inside out, it frays at the seams, even if the initial fraying wasn't anywhere near the seams. So yeah, it's just a little trick I picked up just to make sure that things don't turn out too terribly. Here is the second horn. And, oh, like I said, this is back to an arm again. I'm just cutting away the excess seam allowance because it just sits better with a little less seam allowance on the inside. So let's do another preview. Here is how he's going to look. So the next step is to put some stuffing in the arms and legs, because once I attach them to the front and backs of the bodies, you won't be able to access them anymore. But first, I've got these kind of like glitter gravel things I'm going to use as pellets. You're supposed to use these proper doll pellets, but they were like $24 a kilo, and this glitter gravel was $2 for a quarter kilo. So it works just as good, and there's actually no glitter in it. And to stuff it, instead of paying $30 a kilo for actual stuffing at the craft store, I've got one of these $2 pillows from Kmart, which I'm going to cut open and pull out the polyfill from. And trust me, this hypoallergenic polyfill stuff is the exact, or at least as close as I can figure, the exact same stuff which you would get from the big old craft stores, except It's so much more cheaper and accessible, like any department store pillow will have it in it. So now, yes, the pink glitter gravel, so-called glitter gravel, is going into this foot. So I need a funnel to do this. I can't just toss it in. I mean, I could try, but it would be so much harder. So I just get it in. I use about as much as I think I need. There's no specific amount, just as much as I think is good. And now I want to put these two piles into these two arms. So again, using my funnel and just whacking it in. Yeah, it feels nice. Feels kind of like a Beanie Baby in the end. Like Beanie Babies had those beanie arms, I think. I don't know. It's been a long time since Beanie Babies were around. So yeah, they feel good. And I've got it in all the legs now. And it's time to put the stuffing in. Again, it does help that I have kind of small fingers to do this. I mean, they're small, but they're not slender. It would help if I had slender fingers as well. So I kind of play with the stuffing a bit to kind of make sure it's not too bunched up in places. It's kind of nice and evenly stuffed. And yeah, all together they kind of make a sound with all the glittery, gravelly beans in them. They feel good. And also with the red troll's horns, or with the horns that I do anyway, I want to put some stuffing in there, just a little bit. It's very, very small amount, just to give it that extra bit of definition, so that the horns don't look quite as flat. So yeah, that turns out pretty nice. And now, this step might be unnecessary. I don't know how many people actually do this, but I pre-sew. You might think, what the hell is pre-sewing? I pre-sew the ears, the horns, the arms, and the legs onto my plushie. Because yes, while you could just put pins in the arms and legs and horns and ears to attach them to the front and back, and then just sew like the front and back together with these limbs like sandwiched between them with pins, I find that that can kind of slip and slide a lot. So I find it's just easier for my sake, you know, just to pre-sew them first. So here, I am pinning it up so that I can sew the top half of the body, not including the legs, because I need some space to be able to do the threading on the troll's face, because I want to make a mouth with thread, and it's easier if you have a bigger hole for your hands to fit through. So to put the back of the troll onto the front, I'm starting in the middle because of fabric stretch. I don't want to start at the left side and find that once I get to the right side, it's like an inch out or like 2 centimeters out because of the fabric stretch. So I go around from the middle of the top all the way around carefully until I reach kind of below the arm, kind of like below the armpit area, I would say. And then I stop, or do my reverse stitch and stop, and go around to the other side. So I start at the top again, make sure I try to go over the seam I already started with, so it's looking kind of like not disjointed, and I go around on the other side just to make sure, and making sure again that I stop just under the armpit, because I will have to leave one side open under the armpit to turn it inside out, just like I did with the arms and legs. So let's have a little sneak peek right here. There we go. So yeah, the back and the front are attached with the ears, horns, and arms between them. Now I will do some cleanup work on the inside. It will be off camera, and I will also take out some seam allowance later just to make sure it all fits together a bit nicer. So these dots on the face, I used my water-soluble fabric marker to mark out where I wanted his little triangle-shaped mouth to go and his nose slits. So I'm using that as a guide to help me keep it all centered and neat. So there we go, there's his face. And I'm using water, it's not spit. I'm using water to wash away the little dots that I, used for the water-soluble marker. It's not spit, believe me. Anyway, so now that I've got that face done, I don't need that, nice big hole at the bottom for my hands to fit in with the needle and thread. So I'm going to use pins, use clips, and I'm going to do the last bit of machine sewing I need to do on this plushie, and that is to sew the front and the legs to the back of the body. So I do need to leave one side open after I do both legs. But first of all, we'll do the side that I do have to close first. And I'll just carefully go around, making sure that I stay on the other side, the inside side of my pre-sew lines, because I don't want anyone to see my pre-sew lines on, you know, the final plushie, even though it's red on red material. And then I stop about here just to make sure that I've got that side open for turning. And you know, the turning hole was a little small in retrospect. It was a tight squeeze. I'm, yeah, again, very happy I have little fingers, even though they're not slender. So yeah, I maybe use a bit of impatient force to pull out the arms and legs. It's a little bit harder because I got the beans in them as well. So eventually, I turn him inside out, and he's looking pretty good. The troll's looking alright. I will probably turn it back in again just to do that extra cleanup work I mentioned and take off some of the excess seam allowance so the material just sits better on itself. But after I do that, it's time to stuff him. So again, using my very small, you know, turning hole, I stuff him. And once I've stuffed him, I'm just going to do a very basic lattice stitch to hide the opening and do them all up. Putting more stuffing in as I need, because the opening just needs a bit of stuffing into it to make sure it, like, his bulging belly is the same on both sides. And then finally I finish my hidden lattice stitch with 1 or 2 or 3 or possibly 4 little knots, you know, whatever you feel comfortable with, to make sure it's all done. And to finish it off, I push the needle through the plushie, pull it tight, and then cut the excess so that it bounces back into the middle of the plushie somewhere. And now, the most nerve-wracking part of the entire point is to put the eyes on it. So I'm trying to work smarter, not harder here. I've got these beautiful light blue eye cabochons, and I tell you, I tried to use hot glue to put them on to fabric. Nah, gotta use super glue because hot glue didn't work for me. So I'm being very, very careful with this super glue. I've got like 1, 2, 3 seconds before it hardens. I'm holding up the non-super glued eye so that I can kind of get an idea of where I want to position them. And pretty much the second I put the super glue onto the plushie, it bonds within like less than 2 seconds. It is so quick. So yeah, I kind of like just adjusted it a little bit. I think it looks straight and vertical. I'm pretty happy with it. So I get the second one, I super glue that as well. I don't super glue all the way to the edge, otherwise my fingers would stick to the cabochon eye. And yeah, just very carefully taking my time, except my time is less than a second, obviously, so you gotta do it pretty fast. And put the eyes on, kind of where I'm happy with them, push them in, make sure the super glue is fully saturated and bonded. Like, I mean, it's done within a second. And there we go. Red Troll turned out pretty damn good. And if you're wondering about his blue scarf, it's from the Blue Troll. Yes, did you forget about the Blue Troll already? So yes, thank you for staying until the end of the video. It means so much to me. If you have liked this, feel free to hit the like button. If you want to see more monsters and more of my creations, feel very free to subscribe. And now, let's see how they turned out. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching until this point, and I will see you next time. Bye guys!